Welcome to Tracking with EarthEye Webinar. I am Salome Mishteli, the East Europe Program Manager, and I have here with me Angela Godby, the Basel Action Network IT Manager, and Jim Puckett, the Founder and Executive Director of the Basel Action Network. We'll speak today about EarthEye and GPS tracking, and after I speak, we'll hear from Jim Puckett. He'll tell us about the history and our experience use of tracking, then how it works, and a tour of EarthEye. This will be given by Angela, and then Jim will give you some reasons why you should use tracking, what the advantages and inconveniences are, and then we'll wrap up in the end with a Q&A section. So keep your questions for that moment. And with no further delay, I'll hand it over to Jim Puckett, who's the Basel Action Network founder and executive director.
Thanks, Salome, and good afternoon and good morning, everyone. As you know, Basel Action Network does advocacy work on waste trade and trying to prevent dumping of hazardous waste from developed countries on developing countries. That's kind of our mission in a nutshell. And over the years, we have had to do some type of tracking to know where the problem was and to discover the problems out there, to do some ground truthing and expose what we think is a real environmental crime that still goes on today. Our first story we did was called Exporting Harm. The second one was the digital dump. There we used the tracking technique of following seagoing containers, intermodal containers. We would find their tracking numbers and we would follow them with online databases that the shipping companies provide. And one such program we did in 2008 was with 60 Minutes. And there we actually, the story of the episode at 60 Minutes was following a container of waste from Colorado all the way to Hong Kong and then into China. But that type of tracking was limited. We couldn't do a lot of things like find out precisely where the waste ended up. We could know the port it left from, we could know the port it was arriving at, but we didn't know all the points in between, and we certainly didn't know the end environmental fate without further investigation. So we were quite excited to explore about 12 years ago the use of GPS tracking. And we got very good at it. We realized it was a very effective tool, very accurate, amazingly so. And we just kind of were hoping to be able to make use of it. And we finally got a grant from the Body Shop Foundation to really scale up and see how we could use it to find out the flows of e-waste from primarily North America in the beginning. And that work has been ongoing, and you can find all of the reports we've done on GPS tracking at this website here on our BAN website. The reports have been many. We started out in 2016 looking at the US situation with about 200 trackers. We did one report on Dell, the problems they were having with their system with Goodwill, having things go offshore. We did a very large-scale program, again, randomly delivering to recyclers in North America. That was the scam recycling report. But all of these are available on that website, and you can find other reports we did in Australia, Hong Kong, Canada, and the most recent one was published last year, Holes in the Circular Economy, where we had 300 some trackers deployed in 10 countries in Europe, and then followed the e-waste to its final destination. So that flurry of activity in those last years has been quite a game changer. We have put out a lot of media. The US expose was featured on PBS. And I'm very proud to say that in Hong Kong, the result of our work there and with Hong Kong media outlet HKO1 resulted in Hong Kong shutting down all these little mom and pop, what I call them is garbage junkyards or e-waste junkyards in new territories. Those were going for about 10 years, and our activity caused the government to take action, and now those folks are no longer permitted to operate. So that was quite a success story. It's been in other media quite often, and all our different reports came out at different times. And that US report, when MIT took the data and made a visualization, you can kind of see the heavy white line there of train cars going across the US, going to the port of Los Angeles, and moving in that heavy white line to Hong Kong. That was the situation before we did our work, and now Hong Kong, that line will no longer look like that. It'll be much more faint going to Hong Kong. It's now going to go to other places, or we're happy to say it's not going to be exported in this way at all. But part of what we were able to show there, I'll give you some examples of what we found out, the little narratives that happen when you follow these trackers, is fascinating and very telling. And I think a few of the examples will give you an idea of what we can do and what we were able to do. One of the ones we're most proud of is that we started finding some of the trackers ending up going to Hong Kong and then bouncing over to Taiwan. And we knew that Taiwan didn't have any informal sector recycling going on. So we were very curious as to why they were going to Taiwan. Well, we investigated, we found this location where a lot of these things were ending up in a farm. These are mostly flat screens from the US. And we found out that what was going on, and these are some of the asset tags, is that people were taking advantage of the extended producer responsibility law, where the government would subsidize the processing of flat screens to the tune of about $9 per flat screen. And that program, of course, was meant to be paid for by the people importing electronics into Taiwan, the manufacturers. And it was supposed to only be for Taiwan waste. Well, we found out that people were scamming it. They were loading up containers, and then they were filtering those into the recycling system and defrauding the EPR system. The Taiwan government was really happy with our discovery, and then funded some more trackers to keep that process going. So that was the first example of somebody other than the advocacy use who really wanted to use our tracking for compliance reasons. Another interesting case was when we were looking into diversified recycling, a company that was near Atlanta, Georgia. And we put trackers into their stream, and we found some of them going offshore, but some of them we found going to a construction landfill after first visiting this location where people would smash the CRTs at night by hand using Latino workers exclusively working day and night in this little tiny shop, and then loading up skiffs and sending them over to a construction landfill. We handled all that data over to the EPA, and they indicted and prosecuted the case. So that was an example of a successful legal indictment based on our tracking. And then the most recent ones that we did in the European theater, we had a German company, A&B Recycling, and we followed their tracker all the way to Thailand and went to the physical site. This is where we were standing there and using drones, etc., to photograph the whole area. And this is what we found. They had Burmese workers living in these shacks made out of gaylords, terrible sanitation, horrible facility for the workers. And this is where things were being broken down, mostly flat screens. And the mercury was being disposed of right there. Another one of our trackers went to this location. And I'm just going to show you the pictures and not go into too much more detail. The pictures speak 1,000 words at least. And then the government came in and we gave them some of this data and did raids on these facilities. And as you know, a year and a half ago, they shut a lot of them down because what had been happening is when China closed their doors and Hong Kong started closing their doors, things started moving to Southeast Asia, Thailand being one of the principal destinations. So you can see that tracking has amazing results when you really use it well. We learned quickly how effective it could be, and very soon we started thinking we got to put it into our eSteward certification program as part of the actual operations. And that was spurred on by another case, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, Total Reclaim here in Seattle, who advertised, do you know where your old computer goes? And apparently they knew, but they didn't want to tell. And the only way we found out was through tracking. And it led to us revoking their eSteward certification in 2016. But after that, of course, worse things happened when we had the data showing where they were storing it, where they were shipping it from, and finally following it via the trackers pathways to Hong Kong. This is one of the sites in New Territories where the Total Reclaim flat screen monitors ended up. This is one of the breakdown operations where all the mercury lamps are being discarded and not being cared for, nobody being protected. That's Total Reclaim's waste, and this is the Gaylord boxes I found from Total Reclaim. So the federal government, as you know, the end of the story, went in and took our evidence based totally on the tracking, and then the follow-up. The state government first fined them $500,000, but then the federal government came in and did much more enforcement and prosecution, and finally sending the two executives to jail for 28-month sentences each. So that was all based on a little GPS tracker of finding out what the truth held for that particular company. And so we took this information to one of our eStewards face-to-face meetings, and people said, we have to be caught doing the right thing. We want to be tracked as part of the program. So it was part of our performance verification system, which includes unannounced inspections. We have added trackers into our program, so everyone has agreed to be tracked randomly and in a hidden way. So we put only 10 out a year at the moment. We could always do more, but that's enough to keep everyone very honest and on their toes. And it's working really well. So since that time, we have not seen an eStewards violation for export. So that's excellent news, and it's something in our certification program we're quite proud of. So it makes it possible also, because we as an independent body are checking on our eStewards, it makes it possible for us to provide our eStewards with more trackers that they can deploy themselves and at a discount. So if we didn't have that and they just did tracking on their own, if we didn't have that safeguard, it could easily be a tool for greenwashing for recyclers. Say, oh, we're tracking our waste, don't worry, but then they make sure the destinations are all benign and not a problem. There would be no real policing going on. It could be used as a complete greenwash. So for recyclers, we insist that they be eStewards if we want to have them use our trackers for that reason. So we began to think this is quite a game changer. With the more trackers that are out there, the better if they're deployed by people who have an incentive to really find out the truth. In other words, the large enterprise users. So we thought we would launch a program, a service, and we called it EarthEye, to do this commercially in a very different basis than advocacy. So it is not a program where we're going to be publishing the information. You control the data. We're under strict NDA, but it's very helpful to have trackers out there by those that really want to know the truth and want to do due diligence and want compliance. So this is the nature of our EarthEye program. The tagline kind of is real-time logistics monitoring, and it's all about tracking your equipment with GPS in real time 24/7. We launched the website at that time. It's up there, eartheye.org, and you can go there. And at the time we launched, it was very exciting to do this with Dell, because people knew that Dell had been caught out by our trackers, but instead of griping about it, they said, this is a good system. We have learned a lot, and we really want to engage with BAN and do more tracking. So they've been one of our first customers, in fact, the first customer of the EarthEye service for enterprises. This was followed by Samsung a few months later. So Samsung currently is a EarthEye client of ours, and I think we have Chris Kosman on the line. If he wants to say a few words, that would be great about his experiences at the end of this program. So it's a commercial service apart from BAN's advocacy and apart from our eStewards performance verification. It's available to all eStewards recyclers at a discount, and it's available to companies, governments, academics, EPR schemes, programs not directly involved in recycling. So we have clients now that include retail stores. We can't mention their names under the agreement. We have clients that are EPR schemes that we can't mention right now, but we'll name a few of our clients. But it's open to all those folks that are not doing recycling. And if you're doing recycling, you need to be eStewards. Again, under non-disclosure, we never reveal individual customer data. We have the right to reveal aggregate data once we've collected it. And it's based mostly on year subscriptions and spaced out over time. So we do a certain number of deployments per quarter. 10 per quarter is a good amount to put out there. So we can install and deploy them, or we can train the customer to do it at less cost. So the installations are the labor-intensive part. Deployment, if you need to travel around to actually put them in place, that is also can be a cost. So we're using a customized technology, a proprietary real-time interface, which Angela will take you through in a minute. And again, it's based on more than 10 years of our experience trying to find the best system possible. It reports every 24 hours and more when moving. Works in any country in the world. 3-year non-lithium ion battery. That's important because we don't want to cause fires and explosions in shredders. And again, it's truly a game changer. Everyone we have been involved with that has used it on the commercial basis has had the experience of being shocked. They have had unpleasant surprises, every single one of them. So it really does provide that little lie detector function. And we like to say it's the equivalent of a due diligence audit every 24 hours. So these are some of our current customers we can name. There's quite a few more that we can't name. And again, the website is there for you to go and take a look. And the only thing that's not there is the actual pricing. That is so variable that you need to contact us and we can let you know what, based on what you have in mind. So Angelo is going to take you on a wild ride here. And so I'd like to hand over the controls over to him.
Hi there, this is Angela. Give me 1 second to set up. All right. Today I'll be discussing how our trackers work. And so let me advance this. Our current trackers are more like smartphones with GPS antenna and a battery, fairly large battery. We want to make sure that this battery is super safe, so we did a lot of research. And we also wanted to make it waterproof so that we didn't have any short circuits or that the trackers wouldn't have any issues with their data. We implemented several battery saving features such as a sleep mode where it goes into deep sleep, and that helps save the battery life quite a lot. And as we've said, these trackers ping every 24 hours or whenever they're on the move. And so that helps out a lot. One good thing is that these trackers are actually user configurable. So you can change the frequency. For example, if you know it's on the move, you can change how often it pings to maybe like every 2 hours or 3 hours, or even every 10 minutes. Those are all user configurable. And what's great with our backend is also you can see the battery life with these trackers and how they're lasting, so you can get an idea of how you really want to use these trackers. So as we've said, right now in their default settings, they they ping every 24 hours, and when they're on the move, every 2 minutes. The moment that it wakes up, this is how GPS generally works, is the device has to seek satellites. And so it kind of needs a little bit of an open space or places that are not Faraday caged too much. But if it can find at least 3 satellites, it'll get a latitude and longitude and send that to our server. And generally, those satellite reads are pretty accurate within about a 10-meter radius. If it can't find those satellites, it'll try to get information on what cell tower it was talking to. And generally, that's about 5 kilometers out in radius of the cell tower. And we'll get that information back, and you'll see that in your portal as a cell read. So you can at least know where your asset is. Our current trackers use 3G with 2G fallback. So this is a proven technology, and it has global reach. So right now it works in every country, which is fantastic. And we've been working on our portal as well. So you can see all this progress and all this data in real time, which is great. And so it actually works great for both your desktop and mobile experience. So whether you're in a meeting, you can pull it up, show it, or whether you're out actually in the field, you can just pull it up on your cell phone and it looks fantastic. And one part to make sure that we're doing things right and making sure that our customers are happy is we document our installations and put that into our portal. So we usually take video, photos, and do multiple things. So we show the installation of a tracker, show its IMEI, show the device's serial number. So whenever something does go wrong, you can look back and find out what device had which tracker. We also document the deployment. And so whenever you or us go out, you can view those videos to make sure that it actually did get deployed, or whenever you have some issue arise, you can have some evidence of your tracker and the asset. So the next exciting bit is showing you our EarthEye portal. So give me 1 second here while I get that set up. All right. So when you log into our portal, you'll get a view of your trackers, your active trackers of the day. And so we can see here, we have one in Hong Kong and one in Thailand. We can also see it in a view here when we click GPS trackers in a table view. And so this is great for like quickly looking at the battery life, when it last updated, the address that it's at, what type of device it was. When we click into one of these, we're given some information about the company, the type, when it got that GPS fixed time, the GPS location with a link to Google, which is great if you want to do some researching about the area. When we click tracker view, it zooms us in to that specific tracker, which is really great. One nice thing is we use Google Maps as our backend, so we get really high resolution satellite images, and in some cases, we get really cool street views. Next, the path view. So this is going to show the path that a tracker took. So for this particular Hong Kong tracker, we saw that it traveled quite a bit of ways to get to Hong Kong. So when we zoom in here to Hong Kong, we'll actually see some movement where it pinged every 2 minutes or so. And so some of the cool features, like I said, we have satellite view, which you can go into, see some high fidelity images of these areas. And we also have street view, so I'll show that here. This one's a cool one, where you can drag this guy over here, down.
This is in Thailand, right?
Yeah, this is in Thailand. And so this is actually really high resolution for a very remote place. So here we can see the company. It's a metal place. We can see some of the waste back here. We can see some of those gaylords back there. And actually, if we zoom out and zoom in, we can see some of that high resolution satellite photos. So we can see some of this black sludge over here, mostly from burning that waste. And you wouldn't have known that it was there. It just looks like general farmland. So that's pretty exciting when we find some of this stuff. Some nice features in this path view. So we've seen this one went from Brisbane, Australia to Hong Kong. There's these buttons down here once you're in a path view where you can click next and see those areas. And there's this thing called POIs, which are points of interest, where you can select a point, add some information about it. For example, in this note, we added that this tracker arrived in new territories on March 1st, 2018. So that's maybe some important information that you'll have in a report. You can always add and remove these points of interest, which is great. But for this one, let's edit it and add some information. So let's add in this was illegal for that to happen. And you'll see that, yeah, that was a success. And when we go into a POI view, it'll select those points of interest with those notes, because sometimes it's a little bit cluttered when you look at how it's traveling around. But this one's especially cool because our trackers also do work near ports. So here you can see the shipping port, and it's super cool. But whenever we go to a POI view, it'll grab those points that you've selected and kind of show you what's important for you. So you can take screenshots of this or show it during your meetings. We do have a tracker report where it does show those points, whatever's on the map, and it's searchable in real time. So for example, if we wanted to search a specific date, it'll limit the view to that. Or if we wanted to just look at stuff that's in Hong Kong, we can do that. And it's super responsive and very fast. So you'll have less frustrations. You can even click on one of these and it'll bring you to that particular point. What's also exciting is when you go into your reports, you can actually download a report from a specific group, multiple groups, or a specific tracker, which is great. And when you do that, you actually get all those notes that you've added and those specific points. So in a spreadsheet, which you can share with your team. So for example, I added that point was illegal. And so we can see that right here. So this is very useful for your CSR reports, or even useful for any manager that you want to send these to. So that's fantastic. As I said earlier, we do document all our stuff. So whether you do the installation or whether we do the installation, you're able to upload your files, which is great. we use Box as our backend, which is extremely secure and safe. So in here, you can view your files, you can download them if you wish, and it's great. We do have videos, for example, showing the tools you'll need, how to install in different devices, which is readily available. We have some map settings, which will kind of show if you wanted these red lines or not, or if you wanted your points to be clustered because they're a little bit too much. So if we go into a path view, we'll see that they're a little bit more clustered with these numbers here. So there's 72 points in this spot. We have your profile, which you can always change your password, change your email, change your time zone, which is great. And finally, we have email support. So whenever you have a problem or any issues or even any suggestions, you're always free to email us. And the way that you get to this section is at eartheye.org. We have the subscribers login, and then you'll log in. So we've really developed this out to help you. And as we've said, this was developed ground up by Basel Action Network. I'm the main programmer for this. We custom tailored this solution for GPS tracking. We do have Google Maps as our backend, so we get street views, we get high resolution satellite views, and easy access to view or download installation, deployment, and videos. And we allow you to easily generate reports for your CSR. And one cool thing that I didn't show, which I'll show now, is that how this works for mobile. And so when you're in mobile, you'll still get the same features. And so this is great. So you can go into tracker view, and you can even do street views while in mobile. So this is really cool, and it makes life easy for you. Saves a lot of time, saves a lot of energy, saves a lot of money. And so next, we're showing the next generation of trackers that we're working on. And so I'll be sharing my webcam here and actually showing this tracker. So our goal was to create a smaller device to really meet the modern needs of asset tracking, including plastic waste tracking. So that's a very hot issue right now. And we wanted to ensure that the tracker was light enough, small enough to fit in plastic containers and really be able to track it and not get separated from its host. And so some of those features that we've added in were having a smaller package for the easier installation into plastic waste, smaller electronics, and definitely other assets that are smaller where our larger tracker wouldn't fit. We again wanted to have good battery life, so we incorporated battery saving features and also used very safe batteries. It's great. We also had included some sensors, for example, so we know when a device gets separated from its host. So we have that alarm, which you'll see in your dashboard. And this is important for, sometimes you may get false positives or false negatives where a device got separated and you're actually just tracking the tracker instead of the device. And so we've seen this in the past, and we've included this in this custom design solution, and it's great. We've also had the housing, once again, weatherproof, durable, and to be able to withstand the pressures of bailing and just compression. So I believe they can withstand like around 2,000 pounds per square inch. So these trackers were meant to be abused a little bit and survive. So these are some images of the housing on the left side and the actual tracker on the right side. I'll be sharing my webcam here in a moment and kind of show you how thin and how these devices actually look. So you should be able to see me now. This is our actual tracker board right here. As you can see, EarthEye with our website address, and there's some information like the IMEI, and this is the backboard. So this is a custom solution that we built in-house. This portion right here is the actual cutoff switch, so you can detect when it gets separated from its host. We use 4G LTE and with a 2G fallback to ensure that it's available in all countries and works in all countries. There are some solutions out there that may use 5G or NB-IoT. Those haven't matured quite yet. And so those solutions only work in larger cities and limited countries. And this is one with the battery housing. And you can tell they're super thin. And this is the actual housing. So to make sure that it is waterproof, we have a silicone gasket that actually encloses the rim in here to ensure that the trackers are waterproof. And so I'm gonna give the map over here to Jim, and he'll explain the benefits of tracking and why tracking.
Nice, Angelo, that was great. Yeah, you guys have probably figured out by now that you could use this tool. It's very fun, but there's a lot of really good reasons to use it besides entertainment value, for sure. The major benefits that we have highlighted here is that it provides real data in real time. So a lot of the studies that have been done about flows of waste based on paperwork are all based on the idea that somebody is going to be telling the truth and filling out that paperwork properly. Therein lies the problem. You need real data from real waste in real time. It virtually provides no false positives because, I mean, Angelo mentioned if it got separated, it still reports, but it doesn't, the idea of having it being with the host is gone. But what you don't have is just data getting mixed up. If you have a ping in a country, the tracker is there. We have never seen any kind of like glitchy data coming through. So that's very, very powerful. The data can reveal the entire chain of export or chain of travel, all the stops along the way. The only part it cannot talk about is on the high seas where we don't have a cell phone system. But it's very accurate. When you're getting those GPS reads and not a cell tower read, very accurate. And in our hardware, we've worked a lot to get the very best antennas there are, so we can go through a lot of buildings more than the off-the-shelf trackers can. And from a psychological standpoint, of course, a behavioral modification standpoint, it incentivizes good behavior when people know that things are being tracked. More and more commercial services are using it. People are going to go, wow, they might have a GPS in there. Let's just do it the right way. So it mitigates risks and liabilities. It's a real safety net for large companies that have that type of liability. And again, for a compliance tool, for EPR schemes, for governments, very powerful, game-changing. And it saves audit costs. Audits are expensive, and more with the pandemic, they're getting very difficult to do. So there's cost savings there for sure. And the cost of prevention, we would argue, is less than the cost of exposure and then having to deal with the problem after it's been exposed. Some considerations. So those are the benefits. These are the possible cons or challenges. It's expensive. These things are smartphones. We are using the best technology. So it's not cheap until you start comparing it to the alternatives of finding out things the hard way via auditors, or not finding out at all until it's too late. So what you got to realize, we're not only talking about hardware. Why the cost rises is every time you have a cell phone yourself, a smartphone, you're having to pay for the service. We have to pay for the service, the SIM cards, the software, etc. And then if there's any installation costs that we would bear, those are part of the cost as well. So you can kind of do a ballpark. It's going to be between 300 and 400, perhaps a little more dollars per tracker. Sometimes you don't get a good GPS signal when things are just really blocked. If it's in a container in a concrete building, you're not going to get a GPS signal, but very likely the cell phone will be able to tell you what city it's in, because the cell phone signal can exit where the GPS cannot read. Without program safeguards, it could be used to greenwash bad behavior, and that's what I mentioned before, which is why we want to make sure that if we're going to put a blessing on a recycler, which might have an incentive to cheat and say that everything's good, we want to have an independent program that verifies the recycler with that type of incentive is really reporting accurately. That's what I just explained. So EarthEye, it's not like the advocacy program. It's not a gotcha program. It's a got your back program. It's for your own back. It's for your own peace of mind. And you get to control the data. We get to observe the data, but we cannot report on it. We will, at your contractual agreement, we can advise you on it and tell you what we think of the movements and whether they might be illegal. We will certainly give you reports, but we're not going to be reporting on it externally. And if anybody's, asking the question, is tracking still needed? Are developing countries still at risk for this particular issue? And there's so many uses for tracking beyond this issue, but is your data at risk? Do you really know where stuff is going? The answer is, unfortunately, sadly, that yes, there still is quite a need for this type of tracking. As I said before, every one of our EarthEye clients has been sadly surprised, horrified at times of what we found. So for the specific customers, enterprises, it reduces your risk and liability. You know where your retired IT is going for sure, not what people tell you, where they tell you it might be going. Reduces compliance expense, including travel costs. EarthEye Tracker, again, is an auditor going 24/7. In the times of a pandemic, when travel is difficult, compliance issues are complicated, trackers are there when you can't be. It might seem expensive, but again, one mistake can cost millions of dollars and ruin a good name, a good brand, which has great value. So for recyclers and refurbishers, e-stewards that want to use this, somebody once said, trust but verify. Again, this is the same true for enterprises, of course, but this is a way of verifying. Running an ITAD business is very challenging, and you don't have the capacity to always know where your downstream is sending things. You'll have them under contract to do a certain thing, but they won't do a certain thing, but you need to check. We found out the hard way ourselves. EarthEye allows you to sample your material all the way through your downstream. You don't have to do a ton of it, just a sampling, and that keeps everything honest and avoiding costly mistakes. Provides peace of mind and is a great marketing tool. Imagine talking to a client or prospective client, opening up your portal and say, these are where our stuff is doing right now. Take a look. This one has gone here. This one's gone here. This one's gone to a smelter where it's supposed to go. You can show that they can see at any time, and you can share this portal with them if you wish, where the material is going. So it provides a great sense of transparency and honesty and integrity. So we are offering a trial package for anybody who wants to try this for 1 year at our cost. And our cost for 10 trackers and it's going to be $3,500 a year. You get 10 trackers, your own portal, free training on how to install, and anytime consultation. And that package will get your feet wet. You can see how valuable this tool is. So we're offering that today for the first time. Saving you time, your resources, and your reputation. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Salome, who will field your questions and stand by for those questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So you have two options of asking questions. You can raise your hand or you can write down your question. I have a first written question that I will read out to you, Jim, for you to answer. The question is, are local governments able to track e-waste collected by their solid waste handler, assuming the handler is an eStewards member?
Yes, if they want to be involved in this program, and we do have special rates for governments, we would love to see that happen. Right now, we are working with an EPR scheme in a certain state in the US, which I asked to remain anonymous. And that's a similar kind of program where they're checking their legislation on the EPR scheme. Certainly, local governments can do it, state governments, federal governments, as we had with Taiwan. It's an amazing compliance tool. And again, it's about just putting the message out there that this is happening. You don't need to track everything, just a sample.
Thank you. And then we have Amnon Sharour has raised his hand, so we're going to unmute you so you can ask your question. Okay. Seems like you're muted in case you muted by your.
Maybe we can unmute everybody.
Okay, yeah. And then there's another question that's a follow-up from the previous question I read out. Does the customer install the tracker themselves?
You can, and that will make it less expensive for you. We will train you on how to do that, because there are some do's and don'ts with installing trackers into your equipment, and we can walk you through it remotely. We have a training webinar, training video already, but we could then take your actual device, get on FaceTime, and actually walk you through it. That's important. You don't want to mess up the installations. This is an investment. You want to make sure everything works.
And we have another question. What about tracker temperature?
Angelo.
Yeah, so our current trackers actually track temperature. And so that is a feature. But how would you use it is really up to you. So there might be cases where you might be interested in if it's in a warehouse, which might be hot, or if it's outside where it might be cold. But yeah,
maybe the questioner is asking, do they work at really cold temperatures or really hot temperatures?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, are they burning also? That's the other question.
Yeah, so they do work in cold temperatures, I believe, like to -20 Celsius, and they do work in really hot environments, I believe, past like 90 Celsius.
Other question, what about e-waste burning?
Burning?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the amazing thing about this system is you don't have to get on an airplane to learn a lot. Because of Google and Google Earth and Google Street View, I can detect when I see a facility like with one we showed you in Thailand, and we see a lot of black ash. I know there's a smelter there, and if you look a little closer, you usually find the little circle, the smoker, the smelter stack from a satellite view. The stack is the little circle, right? And you can see that, and you know that burning is going on. In that one facility that we showed you at the beginning of the show, they had quite a burning operation. So they would remove the circuit boards on site and pluck out the chips that were valuable, then burn the rest of it. And the dioxin emissions from such a facility would just be horrific. But that's what they were doing day in and day out over an agricultural area in Thailand. You can see a lot of that before you even get on an airplane and go there. But that's another service we can provide. If you don't want to follow up your trackers, we can do that kind of on the ground investigation also.
Yeah, and what's great about that also to add in, we have many years of experience. So we have Chris Brandt, who is the research manager, and he has a wealth of information on specific sites and specific places that might be of interest. And so when you ask these kinds of questions, he'll be able to guide you through to say this particular place does burn e-waste.
Yeah, the one that we showed you in Thailand with those black areas, we went there because the Australian Broadcasting Corporation wanted us to go there and actually do some more investigation. We went there, knocked on the door, and we said we'd like to see your e-waste, and they said we don't have any e-waste in here. And so Chris, who was there with Haley, they put a drone up in the air, and the drone was photographing all the stacks of e-waste. And then the owners came running out and said, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" We said, "We're just photographing." And they said, "Oh, come on in." And they went in and they saw just massive amounts of material stockpiled from North America.
Then we have our next question. For the service, do you source the e-waste and install as well, or do we need to supply the e-waste?
We can supply it for you. We have sources for it. And we have some right now in storage, for example, that we would use. So we can do that, or you can provide your own. Likewise, you can install your own, you can deploy your own, or you can hire us to do it.
Great. Maybe Chris, if you would like to say a few words about your experience. Let me unmute
Chris
you.
Kosman in the house?
Yes. Yes.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yay.
Yes.
All right. This is my name's Chris Kasman. I'm with Samsung. I run e-waste take back and regulatory compliance for Samsung across the US. We've been using EarthEye for 2 years, 2019 and 2020, and have had a great experience with it. One of the things that I guess I want to touch on a couple things that maybe you guys didn't hit on that others would be interested in hearing. So we have 40 trackers out in 2019, 40 out in 2020. We have experience both installing the trackers and deploying the trackers ourselves, but also having EarthEye do it for us. And the names Haley and Chris were just mentioned, but behind the scenes, them and Angelo have been awesome at working with me and answering any questions, working on updating and editing software features within the EarthEye portal. These things, a lot of the things that actually, some of the things that Angelo highlighted in the PowerPoint presentation were different things that him and I kind of brainstormed on and worked together. And it's been really cool to see it come together and follow the trackers throughout the US and the world. That said, one of the things that's interesting for Samsung is, we're deploying the trackers into our collection sites where consumers drop off e-waste, and the trackers not only help us validate that that our recyclers are doing the right thing, but they're also helping to validate that the collection sites are actually sending the trackers onto our recyclers and not diverting them to the trash or to another entity. So we use it to keep our recyclers honest, but also to keep the collection sites that are within our networks honest as well. So it's something that we don't plan, at least right now, on stopping. It's something that is kind of an addendum, an add-on to our auditing protocol through our eStewards recycler network in the US, and it's been great. So I can answer any questions, but thanks for working with me, and let's keep going.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
And I do want to touch up on the partnership with Samsung and Chris specifically. One thing that's really great about our tracker software and our backends is we do work with you to make it easier. There's a lot of off-the-shelf components and off-the-shelf solutions out there, but they're a little bit janky. They're a little bit more convoluted in how you use them because they're originally meant to maybe track vehicles, maybe track trucks. And so a lot of the features in these may not be useful to you. So having been able to work with Chris and find things that he really needs and things that our customers really want and being able to implement it as a custom solution only makes the platform much better, much more useful, and much more easier for our customers. And also for our customers, it also helps really develop good, strong trust with their brand, with their customers, and whatnot.
Great. Does anyone have any other questions?
Can you advance the slide to the, Angelo, to the contact slide?
Yeah, no problems. Actually, yeah.
I'm having trouble advancing it.
Let me advance it.
Anyway, so people, yeah. People want more information, want to contact us. Here's our coordinates, even when during the pandemic. We're all working from home, but these phone numbers and such work.
Great.
So
thank you all for joining us.
Yeah.
Thank you all again for your time and your patience.
Thanks so much. Looking forward to you contacting for more information. Take care.